Why the Eastern Cape, you might ask? Why start at this scalp of green silence? This part of Africa was the first frontier between black and white, between the terrestrial endeavour of Africa and the maritime endeavour of Europe. The Eastern Cape opened up between white and black an entirely new relationship beyond that of master and slave. The landscape of this part of the country provided a dramatic backdrop for the moral struggles around colonialism, expansion, race, and freedom. The indigenous people of the Eastern Cape found themselves selected by history to bear for centuries the brunt of contact with the outside world. Despite the fact that these were peaceful farming and cattle herding communities to begin with, the area became known for its fierce resistance to oppression. The Xhosa originally consisted of three main groups: the Pondo, to which Winnie Madikizela Mandela belongs, the Tembu House, of which her former husband is a prince, and the Xhosa group, which produced Steve Biko. Resistance in the Eastern Cape was complemented by excellent missionary schooling, which enabled the oppressed to put forward a refined political argument in English, thus breaking new ground in black political thinking internationally. The Eastern Cape also saw the beginnings of the Pan-African Congress and black consciousness. From the 60s onwards, with the cream of its leadership either in jail or in exile, the Eastern Cape endured an unprecedented escalation of human rights abuses, many of them notorious. These included the detention and death of Steve Biko, the assassination of the Cradock Four and Pepco 3, the massacre at Bisho, and the Motherwell bomb incident. Of all those detained without trial in South Africa, 1/3 came from the Eastern Cape. Why? Because the region was also the dumping ground for those soldiers who got out of hand during the Bush War, the veterans, black and white, of Kufut and the notorious 101 and 32 battalions. These men had to be kept out of the glare of the media and at a distance from Parliament and human rights organisations, and their names cropped up during the first weeks of hearings in East London, always in connection with torture and murder. Gideon Nieuwoud, Albert Ntungata, Eric Winter, Chris Labuskaghni, Speke van Wyk, Gert Stradom. It was apparently assumed in security circles that whoever crushed the Eastern Cape would control the country. The region still lives with the consequences. Despite the fact that the Xhosa people dominate South African politics, this is the second poorest of the 9 provinces, with 65% of the economically active population unemployed. True to its spirit of resistance, the first attempts to stop the Truth Commission emanate from the Eastern Cape. The Biko family filed several cases to prove that the legislation is unconstitutional, while perpetrators from Port Elizabeth succeed in preventing the Truth Commission from allowing victims to name them. It has to be this part of the country that turns us inside out, that renders us bare lips. It has to be this region of fierce opposites, meadows and plains, waterfalls and dongas, ferns and aloes, that sparks from a speechless darkness the voices of the past. And at long last, flickering cigarette ash from our shoulders, we can weep in the certainty of this April, in the assurance of the testimony of fellow South Africans. To kill or caress, it keeps us going, as degenerate metal. By Ankie Kroch, Country of My Skull.